So, I would like to propose that Biden has perhaps peaked at his most senile moment yet. And I know that that's a very difficult thing to establish because there's so many, isn't there? I
And
mean,
he's getting older and
mhm.
presumably more senile by the moment.
One of my favourites is the sort of Shaggy Dog story where he talks about his hairy legs.
Why did he tell that story? I swear to God. That's one of your favourite ones to
I
reference.
love it, yeah.
Oh, the kid's pulling on my hairy legs. Why, Joe? Why?
President of the United States. I'm just going to be like, yeah, the kids, they'd come and touch my hairy legs. Joe Biden.
Oh, and the hair
One of
smells
the most
so good.
inspirational quotes. But anyway, my favourite quotes
Be
aside,
right up there with Lincoln.
um, Joe Biden tweeted this out. At the time I took office about 16 months ago, the economy had stalled and COVID was out of control. Today, thanks to the economic plan and the vaccination plan that my administration put into action, America has achieved the most robust recovery in modern history. I mean,
Has it, Joe?
I wonder where the fact checkers are for this. Eh?
Oh, they're probably completely true. Mostly true.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
That's probably why, as the Post Millennial reports, gas costs more than double since Biden took office. Of course, best recovery ever.
I mean, that is
Doubling
all
of
true.
prices in 16 months. That's
I will say as well, though, that the economic plan that was put in place and the vaccination plan was just a continuation of the plans that Trump put in place.
I did actually have that in my notes, and
Yeah. So we can't just blame it all on Sleepy Joe because
Mm-hmm.
Trump also made some bad decisions like printing trillions
But
of dollars, for instance.
I'll fight Trump's corner here
Oh, all right,
a
all
little
right.
bit because what happened was I think Congress started passing legislation about these lockdowns and things like that, and then basically Trump had his hand forced because they're like, well, we're going to do this, but the people need their money, they need their stimulus checks, you need to sign the bill, and it's just the choice between Congress holding the public to ransom to kind of own Trump, so to speak.
Sadly, that
So
just
he had
goes
his
to
hand
show-
forced, and he did lament at all of the waste of money that it would be.
And
So he
that's
said that. It was
fair.
just like, I don't really have a choice.
So that just goes to show the economic illiteracy of your Congress, sadly, America.
Mm-hmm. So yes, cost of gas has near enough doubled, according to the Post Millennial. US gas averaged $2.39 per gallon the day President Biden was inaugurated, and it's risen dramatically to $4.82 per gallon on average. So yes, that obviously the Biden administration has been using Putin and the sanctions placed on Russia as an excuse for this. However, the United States could be completely fuel self-sufficient, and also you're not exactly particularly far away from countries like, I don't know, Venezuela. And I know it makes sense to put sanctions on them because they are a socialist hellhole.
But at the same time, if you're in a problem, you kind of got to take your solutions. Don't
Yes, exactly. And of course, one of the significant things that Biden did personally was, of course, in his first week in office, he signed an executive order that cancelled the Keystone Pipeline and also put limits upon fracking, which, of course, would
It's a
make
terrible
things...
idea.
Yeah, it would have made things so much better, so much cheaper. And of course, this was all done in the name of green energy. But of course, if you wanted to encourage innovation, well, you make the cost of production as cheap as possible.
Yeah,
That's
it
the
turns out-
obvious thing to do.
It turns out what people have been saying for decades, which is green energy is massively inefficient and cannot sustain a modern economy, turns out to be true.
Yes, if you actually want green energy, well, what you want to do is have fossil fuels as cheap as humanly possible, not the opposite.
And if you wonder, well, why do we want a modern economy? Well, to a certain extent, it's because modern economy is the only one that can sustain the amount of people that we have. Otherwise, there will be Soviet-style famines and starvations.
Not exactly ideal, is it?
No.
So moving on to this article from the Daily Mail, 83% of Americans say the economy is poor or not so good under Biden, and just 27% think they can improve their financial situation, according to another poll, a dire poll for the White House. So apparently, more than a third of the country, or 35%, are not satisfied with their own financial situation, which is higher than at least 50 years ago. So yes, as opposed to, Joe's claim that things are going really well, obviously they're not.
So qualitatively, people are saying it's worse than it was in under 70s stagflation.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. That's
So
not good, is it?
38% said their financial situation had gotten worse over the past couple of years. Apparently,
yeah.
concerns also impacted people's views about the future, with only 27% saying they had a good chance of improving their living standards. This constitutes a steep 20-point drop from just a year ago. So, yes. In what world, Joe, are things getting better under you? Where is the recovery? Things are getting worse. People can recognise they're getting worse. And apparently, a plurality of 46% said they don't have a good chance of improving living standards. So yes, that's almost half of people polled here that thought that there isn't a chance of them improving their living standards. That's not a good economy, is it? Obviously.
A hopeless society. Great.
Yeah, it's utter madness, isn't it?
I mean, people know they can't save their money because of inflation. Therefore, there's no point in investing in anything because my money's worthless tomorrow anyway. So,
and even the Biden-friendly press have been giving them a hard time. So here's an article from Fox News saying Biden's press office plagued by negative coverage, messaging gaffes as media signals honeymoon is over. So more or less, this article is covering the fact that they're no longer asking these sort of nice setup, putting the tee and the golf ball out in front of the press secretary, just asking them really favourable questions. They're actually asking them difficult questions for once.
Oh my goodness! And this is after they put a black woman as the press secretary.
I know, it must be racism.
It must be.
But yes, obviously people can't really be deceived by the fact that the number in their bank account is lower than they would want. So this is a pretty objective measure. Yes.
Even if it's the same, they can't buy what they used to be able to. So
yes,
what's the point?
Exactly. So this is an objective measure. You're not really going to be able to convince people otherwise, however left-wing they are. If their living standards are noticeably worse, they're going to become disenchanted. And this is what this says. Even the left of centre media has begrudgingly acknowledged that the Biden administration is struggling. And that's a quote here. So
perhaps what happened was that Biden found himself a copy of the Industrial Society and its future and thought, oh, he's got some good points here. We're going to have to take it back, lads.
Yes, because it's certainly not going nearly as well as he hoped. And apparently, according to Breitbart, frustrated and seething Joe Biden is angry about his flailing. Well, that was a bit of a Freudian slip, but it's not too far off, is it, really? So yes, apparently Politico's Jonathan Lemire, I don't know, cites 5 White House officials and Democrats close to the Biden administration who point to the greatest source of West Wing frustration coming from behind the resolute desk, just meaning Joe Biden's desk. So Biden is exasperated, the report says, and his approval ratings are below former President Donald Trump's. The report also noted Biden is far more prone to salty language behind the scenes than is popularly known and erupted over optics of the baby formula shortages. I've actually heard lots about Joe Biden being incredibly rude, because there was a case of one of his aides questioning him about why he was meeting a business associate when he was in China of Hunter Biden's, and when he was just like, don't you think that looks bad? Apparently Joe Biden exploded at them, and apparently they resigned not too long afterwards.
I mean, to be fair, all you need to do is look at the press footage of when he was going around campaigning, and anybody who questioned him, he would immediately start with poking them in the chest, and suddenly his language would become much more stern. He does not seem like a level-headed person. He obviously has been able to maintain it to a certain degree in public, but even then, not that well.
Well, after all, one of the symptoms of dementia is sudden bouts of aggression. So there is that, of course. Moving on, Biden has been putting his foot in it again. Biden misleads public, says firearms are children's number one killer, according to the Post-Millennial. And I quote here, amid national debate about firearms, President Joe Biden was caught misleading the public about the number of children dying from guns. He said firearms are the number one killer. In a public address on Thursday, this must be last Thursday, the president asserted more children had been killed by firearms than in car accidents. And I'm quoting here directly from Biden. According to new data just released by the Center of Disease Control and Prevention, guns are the number one killer of children in the United States of America. Biden's statement is only true if people between the ages of 18 and 19 are also considered children.
I would consider them children, but still.
Mm-hmm. According to the CDC, Biden's source, the number of gun-related deaths between those two ages exceeds the number of deaths between ages 1 and 17 combined. When pressed on the statistics, the White House said it's used a study evaluating children's deaths from the ages of 1 to 24. Yes, 24. Everyone knows that's the cutoff for being a child.
Is there a particular demographic in America known for its excessive violence of the young male population? Because I feel like he might actually be pointing to a different problem than the one that he thinks he is here.
I'm not going to put my foot in that one.
Yeah.
But I know which demographic you might be referring to. So yes, it goes on to say the CDC report did not make the same claim as the president. It suggested the gap between gun-related deaths and car accidents could close in the future, not that the gap had already closed. So that's pretty resounding, really. The report that they were citing didn't even back them up. So yes, however, on a more positive note, I suppose, let's not be all misery. An Ohio governor is set to pass a bill allowing school employees to carry guns.
Good.
So
That's
yes,
how you solve school shootings. Make it so that it's too dangerous for the shooters to go to the school.
yes. So Governor Mike DeWine is ready to sign a bill allowing school employees to legally carry firearms on campus. The bill recently passed the Ohio State Legislature after vigorous debate and staunch opposition from the legislature's Democratic members. Under the new bill, employees must receive firearm instructions to take advantage of the opportunity to carry. The amount and the nature of the training, as well as the decision to allow staff to carry a tool, will be left in the hands of local schools and school districts, according to Blaze. So that's good. They're actually giving schools the choice to do this, rather than just forcing them to do something.
Remember, Ohio residents, your Democratic candidates were very eager to make your schools less safe.
Mm-hmm. DeWine further elaborated on the decentralized nature of the legislation, and I'm quoting here directly, ultimately each school will make its own decision, so we're not telling any school district. We have over 600 school districts in the state. The school board of that school will decide whether they want to arm teachers or not. So yes, this
Sounds
is
fair to me.
This is the desirable situation of allowing schools to make their own decisions, not forcing people through government.
They're not forcing anything, they're actually removing a restriction, is what it sounds like.
And if this were in tandem with a good amount of school choice as well, where you can actually pick a school where you know your children are safe, and then the Democrats could be like, no, we don't want guns around our children, well, they can be in the dangerous schools. And although it's not the children's fault, the parents will be then culpable for such a thing happening. And I think it's fair to give people choices about the way they want to live their life, the way they want to raise their children.
Yes, and
having the government
accept
to
the
interfere.
consequences that come from
Exactly,
those decisions.
yes. So clearly trying to carry out a little bit of damage limitation, Joe Biden is to break his 119 plus days of press silence with a Jimmy Kimmel live interview. And
this will not be useful at all. Jimmy Kimmel is astroturfed to the nth degree and will not be asking any difficult questions.
I mean, if I don't know who's going to tune in to watch these clashing of charisma voids, but oh dear me. I mean, talking to Jimmy Kimmel of all people, I mean, you look into his eyes and you see nothing there. It's like he's got no soul behind the eyes.
Same with all of the
You
late
hear
night
his
hosts.
fake laugh. It's But yes, I don't think this is going to go quite the way he imagines. Although Jimmy Kimmel did set up to basically just like, yeah, there's no tomfoolery, no funny business. We're just going to have a chat. So he's making it as easy as possible for old Joe Biden there.
Yeah, it's just going to be softball question after softball question. Also, do you want to read out your True Detective quote you've got here? Just because I noticed it in the notes. Go on.
Should I do it?
Yeah. It's
So it's a quote from season 1 of True Detective. I put it in there just because I really don't like Jimmy Kimmel, but there's a line in it that says, I can see the soul at the edge of your eyes. It's corrosive like acid. You've got a demon, little man, and I don't like your face. Sorry, that just came to mind when I saw Jimmy Kimmel. I can't possibly say why. But yes, the final thing I wanted to end on, talking of Joe Biden's presidency, is this article from Hugo from the 16th of February, which evaluated his presidency and whether it was successful or a failure on his own terms. And it goes through lots of other things, such as talking about the fact that he signed 28 executive orders in his first 2 weeks as president, which far outpaced many other previous presidents, even the quasi-imperial tenure of Franklin D. Roosevelt, as Hugo says.
He outpaced FDR.
Yes.
Good God.
Yes, and as it as I mentioned earlier, the construction of the Keystone XL pipeline was one of the things. Rejoining the Paris Climate Agreement. I mean, these are all...
Which was just a useless agreement in the first place, where China just gets to sit back and go, we ain't doing anything, and everyone else goes, well done, how brave.
And even back in February, Hugo was pointing out the gas crisis growing, and also the fact that of course, the most obvious one of all, the Afghanistan withdrawal, the horrific lockdowns of the country, the failure to address immigration at the southern border, massive inflation, his horrendous polling. In February, when this was written, he had a 14% net disapproval, which is pretty awful. So, yes, Joe Biden doesn't seem to me to be doing a very good job, and I think the Democrats are going to suffer in the next congressional election, and I think that that's probably going to be a good thing. Things might actually be on the mend if he is prevented from doing anything else, but we shall have to see. It's very difficult to predict the future, but maybe the fact that he's doing so well and struggling to even win over some of the left-wing press that have been so favourable to him, it might mean that there is possibility for some change. It's not optimistic, but maybe. I mean, a little bit of hope. I mean, you don't get that often from me.
More than we have over here.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed that segment from the podcast Lotus Eaters, you can become a member and find all of our premium content on lotuseaters.com, including the latest book club number 30 on Dr. G.J. Rainier's The English Are They Human, which was done by Carl and our guest Mega Verma. If you're interested in finding Carl on social media, you can follow him on Getter at Carl Benjamin. Thank you and goodbye.